Did you know the average person comes up with 6 to 7 business ideas in their lifetime? And maybe you've already had one too, just chilling in your notes app right now waiting for some day. But here's the thing. Most people never actually do anything with those ideas. Not because the ideas suck. They don't. It's just people get stuck. Like, where do you even start? Do you build a website first? Try to find a co-founder? Do you need a logo? Do you quit your job? It's like your brain opens 50 tabs at once and none of them load. So you just kinda do nothing. That's where the lean startup comes in. It's a super practical method to actually start, even if you've got zero experience. In this video, I'm breaking it all down for you, step by step. So by the end, you'll know exactly how to take your idea, no matter how small or half-baked it feels, and start turning it into a real business. First, let's talk about why 90% of startups fail. And trust me, it's not because the founders were lazy or had bad ideas. Most startups fail because they follow a plan that sounds smart, but is completely backward. Here's what usually happens. Someone gets excited about an idea. They write a long, fancy business plan, get some money, hire people, build the product, launch it, and then wait, and keep waiting. Meanwhile, nothing's happening. No users, no traction, no real feedback, just a bunch of wishful thinking. And the worst part? They've already spent years building something that nobody wanted in the first place. That's the old school way of doing startups, and it's broken. Building the product is not the hard part anymore. With tools like Shopify, Notion, Webflow, AI, you can build things fast. The real challenge is building the right thing, and that's exactly where the lean startup comes in. Start with a minimum viable product. So here's where we start building, but not in the way most people think. See, this is the part where most new founders mess up. They get an idea and they vanish into a cave for 6 months, coding like mad scientists, designing the logo, crafting the perfect app, talking to no one, and then they launch it, and it flops. Now, what if I told you, you're not supposed to build the whole product right away? In fact, you shouldn't. You need to start with something way simpler, your minimum viable product, or MVP. Let me give you an example. You know Dropbox, right? It looks super polished now, but when they started, they didn't build a single line of code. Instead, they made a short demo video just showing how Dropbox would work if it existed. That's it, a simple video. And guess what? People watched it, loved the idea, and signed up for the waitlist. That waitlist grew like wildfire. And the best part? They hadn't even built the product yet. That's an MVP done right. Here's another one, Zappos. You know, the giant online shoe store? Their founder, Nick Swinmurn, didn't build a massive inventory system or fancy website. He just went to local shoe stores, took photos of the shoes, and listed them online. If someone bought a pair, he'd run to the store, buy it full price, and ship it himself. So what can you do? Seriously, ask yourself right now, what's the simplest version of the idea I can test this week? Not next year or after you learn to code. Could you make a landing page with a sign-up button that doesn't actually lead anywhere, just to see if people click? Could you post a sketch of your product on Instagram and ask, would you buy this? Could you fake the backend with Google Sheets just to get a few test users? Because here's the thing, an MVP isn't about launching, it's about learning. You don't need a final product, you just need a signal, a reaction, a yes or a no. That tiny signal tells you if you're on the right track before you waste months and money building something no one wants. So, don't build a castle, build a tent. Set it up fast, see who walks in, and listen to what they say. And once they're inside, that's when we move to the next step, figuring out exactly how to measure what's working and what's not. We'll get to that in a second. But first, what's your MVP idea? Drop it in the comments. The build, measure, learn loop. Awesome. You've set up your tent, your MVP. You've put it out into the world. Now what? Here's where most people panic. They either stare at their product waiting for some kind of magic, or they obsess over making it better without actually knowing what better means. This is where the build, measure, learn loop comes in. And this right here, this is the heartbeat of the lean startup method. Let me break it down real simple. You build something small, you measure how people use it, you learn from it, then repeat. Sounds obvious, right? But here's the catch. Most people skip the measure and learn part. They just build, like a chef cooking meal after meal, never letting anyone taste it. Let me give you a story to make it stick. Imagine you're baking cookies. You whip up this wild chocolate chili lavender combo, and you think it's genius. You hand it to your friend, and they take one bite and did not like it. Now here's the smart move. Instead of making 100 more chili cookies, you ask, what didn't you like? They say, it was too spicy. So you dial back the chili, you try again. That's build, measure, learn. Now apply that to your business. Like, remember the Dropbox video from earlier? That was their build. The views, the signups, the shares, that was their measure. And what they learned? People desperately wanted simple file syncing. That gave them the green light to go full throttle. Another great example is Buffer. When they started, they didn't build a product at all. Just a landing page with a pricing plan. When someone clicked a plan, they saw a coming soon message. but that told them exactly what people were willing to pay for before they built a single feature. Now, here's where most people mess up. They either don't measure anything, or they collect data and then ignore what it's screaming at them. Learning means being brutally honest with yourself. And sometimes what you learn surprises you in the best way. Take Airbnb. In the early days, they thought the website was the issue. They tried redesigns and tweaks. But the real problem? The photos. Listings had dark, ugly, blurry pictures. So the founders literally grabbed a camera, knocked on doors in New York, and started taking professional photos themselves. Guess what happened? Bookings went up. A lot. And they learned something they didn't expect. Better photos equals more trust and more bookings. Simple, right? That was their learn moment. So here's how you can do it. Build the smallest version of your idea you can actually show someone. Measure how real people behave, not what they say, but what they do. Learn from it. Not just, is this working, but why or why not? Adjust, then loop again. Validate assumptions with real customers. Alright, remember when we talked about building a minimum viable product? That's you testing your big idea. Like, will anyone even care about this? You toss it into the world and see if people bite. But here's where we go deeper. Because even if your MVP works, it might be working for the wrong reason. Or it might be hiding little problems that'll explode later. So now it's time to validate your assumptions. Let me explain. Let's say you want to sell handmade candles. Your MVP is a stall at the local Sunday market with 3 candle scents. You get a few sales. Nice, that's promising. But now the question becomes, why did people buy? Did they love the scent? Was it the good packaging? Was it because your price was low? Would they buy again? Or was it a one-time thing? See where we're going with this? You're not just testing the product anymore. You're testing the reasons behind it. Again, when Dropbox launched, their MVP was a video. But what they were really doing was validating a hidden assumption. People will understand the value of syncing files across devices just from watching a video. That's risky, but it worked. People got it, signed up like crazy, and they hadn't even written the full code yet. Same with Nick from Zappos. He didn't just test if people wanted shoes online. He tested if they trusted a no-name site enough to pay up front for something they couldn't try on. That's a trust assumption. And it passed. You don't need fancy tools. Just talk to people. Observe. Ask things like, what made you choose that one? Would you buy this if it were $2 more? If I wasn't here next week, would you look me up online? Here's the trick though. Don't treat feedback like compliments. Treat it like a map. And here's a fun way to think about it. Building an MVP is like opening the curtain. Validating assumptions is like checking if the audience is clapping or just politely blinking. Now, what if your assumptions are wrong? What if people don't react the way you expected? Pivot before it's too late. Let's talk about the pivot. This is where a lot of dreams either die quietly or get smarter and explode into something better. When I say pivot, I don't mean quitting. I don't mean giving up or starting over from scratch. I mean making a smart shift, changing direction based on what you've learned. Because here's the truth. Most of us start with an idea that we're sure will work until it doesn't. Twitter is a perfect example here. Yeah, Twitter didn't start as Twitter. It was actually a podcast platform called Odeo. But right around that time, Apple dropped podcasts on iTunes. So the team at Odeo looked around and asked themselves, what else can we do with this tech? What else do people want? They pivoted into microblogging, which sounded weird back then, but that pivot became Twitter, $1 billion left turn. Or take Instagram. Their original app, it was called Bourbon, and it had everything. Check-ins, plans, photos. And guess what? Nobody cared about anything, except the photo sharing. So the founders said, all right, cut everything else. Let's just do photos better. And they pivoted to Instagram. Just one feature done right. And we all know how that went. So here's the question for you. What's the one thing your users keep coming back for? And just as important, what's the stuff they're ignoring? That's where the pivot lives. But you can't make the pivot if your ego's in charge. If you're clinging to your idea instead of chasing what works, you'll miss the moment. The trick is to fall in love with the problem, not your solution, because the pivot, if done at the right time, might just be the smartest move you ever make. Focus on actionable metrics, not vanity metrics. All right, now that you've got something people actually want, how do you make sure you're growing the right way, and not just staring at likes and follows that don't mean anything? And here's where a lot of people mess up. They start chasing the wrong numbers. We call these vanity metrics. They're dopamine candy, but they don't mean people are buying, loving, or staying with your product. Let's break a few down real quick. Conversion rate. How many people are actually buying? Say you've got 10,000 people visiting your website. Cool, but here's the question. How many clicked buy? If only 100 people did, that's a 1% conversion rate. Now before you panic, that's actually kind of normal. But here's where it gets interesting. Small tweaks can change everything. Dropbox early on had a homepage explaining cloud syncing with a bunch of techie terms, but people didn't get it. Then they added one clean, short explainer video showing exactly what Dropbox did in under 2 minutes. Result? Their signups jumped 10% overnight. That only happened because they tracked conversion rate and saw the bottleneck. Retention. Do people come back or do they ghost you? This one's huge, especially if your business is subscription-based or depends on repeat customers. Let's say you run a fitness coaching program. Tons of people sign up for a free trial, but after a week, nothing. If your retention rate sucks, you don't have a business. You have a leaky bucket. Ever heard of Duolingo? They're obsessed with retention. That's why the owl haunts you with daily reminders. They gamified the entire learning experience. Streaks, gems, progress bars, all to keep people coming back. Retention means value. If they come back, you're doing something right. Cost per acquisition. How much are you spending to get one customer? Okay, this one separates the pros from the panickers. If it costs you $20 in ads to get a $10 sale, you're not running a business. You're burning money with style. Smart businesses track this like hawks. For example, let's say you run Facebook ads for your online course. You spend $500 and get 25 paying customers. That's $20 per customer. Now, if your course sells for $200, you're winning. But if it's a $30 course, you better start tweaking your offer, your targeting, or your pricing fast. Knowing your CPA helps you scale without sinking. Churn. Are people sticking around or are they dipping out? Churn is the silent killer. It means people are leaving, unsubscribing, canceling, or ghosting. Netflix tracks churn like their life depends on it. If they see a spike in people canceling, they dig deep. Was it a price hike? Bad content month? Bugs? If you're running something like a membership site, SaaS product, or even a gym, churn tells you the health of your long-term game. High churn equals bad experience. Low churn equals people are loving what you do. Now here's the question I want you to ask every time you look at your stats. Can I make a decision from this number? If the answer's no, it's probably a vanity metric. If the answer's yes, that number is pure gold. Because when you focus on the right numbers, you don't guess what to do next. You know it. Alright, let's wrap this up. We've covered a lot. Now the question is, are you ready to turn your idea into a real business? So let's land this plane together and make sure you're not just nodding along, but actually ready to build something real. I don't want this to be one of those videos you watch, get hyped, then forget by tomorrow. Let's hit the highlights, quickfire style, and this is your mental checklist. Better yet, write this down somewhere. First, start with an MVP, not a mansion, just a tent. You don't need a full app, a fancy logo, or investors breathing down your neck. You need one simple version of your idea that you can show someone, like Dropbox did with just a video, or like a baker testing recipes at a weekend market before opening a shop. Then build, measure, learn. Make something small. Put it in the world. Watch what happens, what works, what flops. That's where the gold is hiding. Next, validate your assumptions with real humans, not your own overthinking. Talk to people. Listen to what confuses them, what they don't care about, what they light up over. And when the signs are screaming, this isn't it, pivot. Don't sink time, money, and your soul into something people don't want. Shift early. Shift smart. Finally, track what matters. You want to know, are people signing up? Are they sticking around? Are they buying? Are they telling others? That's the heartbeat of your business. If it ain't beating, you don't need a new logo. You need to learn, tweak, or pivot. If this video helped, hit the like button, subscribe for more breakdowns, and drop your MVP idea in the comments. I want to hear what you're building. See you in the next one.